Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another podcast, another
Hello.
episode of Press Start to Begin. I know you have all been sitting there all week
Oh,
on your
yes.
hands, being like, I've got
I
nothing to
need.
do. I have no reason to live. I am literally just waiting for the next episode of what critics have definitely called the best podcast that has ever existed anywhere, ever. Obviously,
Hell
I'm Jack.
yeah.
As you know, my name is here. You can see it. Most of you know me
And
already.
I'm Sean, and the reason I'm tiny is on to the next one.
It's it's don't worry about that. It's much more about how you use it, right? That's what
How
they
you
say.
use it.
That's what they say. We're of course talking about Sean's height and nothing
Yes,
else. So get your
5'9",
minds
out the gutter.
get your minds out of that gutter because we're going to put them right back in there ourselves with this lovely thing that we're going to call content. So you know the format. You know the format, right? You've watched this already. We're going to talk about some gaming news. Some of it a bit ridiculous, which makes it even more fun. And today, of course, episode 2, but is our first episode with a guest, which is our plan for each episode where we bring someone on.
Who is it?
So who's it going to be? Oh, you'll find out soon enough. But before we get into that, because I have to ask this, because I always feel like it's polite. Sean, how the effing hell are you doing?
I am absolutely swell. Last time it wasn't the greatest because I didn't go to the gym, but guess what? Everyone's asking. Obviously, I went to the gym. And what day was it, Jack? Ask me what day is it?
What day was it, Sean?
Oh, Jack, I'm so glad you asked. It's like crazy. It was leg day, squats all day, every day, leg press, abduction, adduction. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do shoulder workout because had hardcore classic day yesterday, and my shoulders hurt from carrying two lovely people. Of course. How are you doing, Jacqueline? How's it going?
I am very good. I have to say, having seen you play hardcore multiple times, that wasn't a very intense shoulder workout for you, was it? I'm good. I'm good. It's been a good week. It was really fun listening to the podcast back because of the narcissist that I probably am a little bit. I like to listen to it, but I think as well, like, it was really fun. It's a good learning experience for us because we're new to this too. So hopefully it's not coming across too obviously. But if you expect us to be anything other than amateur, you've gamed with us, so your expectations need to be tempered a little bit because this is where we're at.
Yeah, like me and Kate.
Which is Sean's Tinder bio. Temper your expectations. And don't ask why I'm tiny. Yeah, Jesus. And once again, obviously, before we even start, we've got a new item already, which is, can we find Sean a girlfriend? That seems to be like a recurring theme. It's only the second one, second episode. We still haven't. It's been a week, guys.
It's been a week.
Like, no one's found Sean a girlfriend yet. Like, he's still single. So you've obviously, you've not been committed to this cause. So maybe we'll start like a telethon. Is that what they do in America? Like the telethons?
We need to do one of those, those product selling TV shows where it's just like, oh, this is a refrigerator, and then it's just like on like one of those things like a carousel that's like turning, and the guy is just there, just opening the door and then opening like the side part, and it's just like, wow, you can plug it into the electric, and then like at the end it just cuts it down by like 80%. You should do that, but with me.
I don't understand. I had this conversation with Lady Ravenwood the other day, right? Actually, it was today. We talked about it this morning about how telly shopping channels still exist. Like, who's buying from these things? Do you know what I mean? Who's paying for? Like, oh, you can buy this kitchen utensil that's made of like NASA grade metal or something. It's like 80 quid for a knife, and I'm like, who's still buying stuff over the phone because it's 2023. Yeah, who even needs that? Like, when do you find yourself re-entering Earth's atmosphere and trying to saute potatoes? I don't like in what situation are those two things combined? So yeah, I don't know who's watching that stuff. Maybe someone can tell us.
Yeah.
But yeah. Speaking
of TV show, Jack, what is the gaming news
TV shows
revolving around a TV show? Can you think of anything?
I can. It's almost like I've got a list of news to like read from. I don't know. Like, if that wasn't a professional segue, by the way, I don't know what it was. Like that's the kind of quality broadcasting you get from from Press Start to Begin from Grimwood. This is the level you get. There is news on a TV show. For anyone that hasn't seen it, obviously most of you will have heard of Among Us. You will have played the game. We've done loads of game nights. We've played Among Us.
Honestly.
Among Us is making a TV show. I don't know how that's going to work because
I don't know how to feel about it.
I mean, eventually everyone's going to be dead, right? We know what the ending is going to be, probably. So I can't imagine it's a long
TV show. It's like, what's the demographic? People die. People literally get like shot and head cut off. Like, is it 18 plus cartoon TV show? It's,
I mean, the game's quite like when you kill someone, you see. I guess it's like cartoon violence, but it's blood, right? There's got to be some ESRB rating or something like that. But yeah, Among Us, a TV show, animated cartoon, probably aimed at adults, I guess. But I don't know, one to watch. We'll definitely share more when we know more. But that's kind of all we know at the moment. Really interesting though. Yeah. Speaking of blood, blood is red. Red is a color. Another color is green, which is the color of emeralds. Sean.
I wonder why you would say emerald. That's so weird. Are we talking about Pokemon Emerald? I guess not today. We are talking about League of Legends. They are releasing another division, the Emerald division. So anyone that plays League, they know it goes from Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, Masters, Challenger. It now has Emerald between Platinum and Diamond. I definitely didn't get that wrong. So Emerald, the reason why they're bringing out Emerald is quite an interesting one because they want to flatten the curve. So there's the majority of people, the majority of player base in Silver, Gold, and Platinum. If you're in Gold and Platinum, you are literally like top 10%, which is crazy considering how technically low that division is, because it's like literally the first 2, 3, 4 divisions. So they're trying to flatten the curve and make it easier to sort of progress through there and get out of those stages, which is very interesting because they'd actually taken out the 5th division, because in every division, so like bronze, it used to be bronze 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then you go to silver 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They actually got rid of 5 out of everyone, so it starts with bronze 4, and then they added in iron below bronze 4. This allowed people to move up a bit quicker, but the emerald will then allow people to get more points to get through to the divisions. So pretty good, very nice change. When you first look at it, you're like, oh my god, I've got to climb even more. But now looking at the back of it, it's like this is a good change, and Riot are looking at things to help people progress to the place they are meant to be. Because there's some excellent players in silver, but you would see silver as like a lower division. So awesome, thumbs up to Riot Games on that one.
That is really good. I think I really like it when games companies aren't afraid to shake things up a little bit or change what they've built before. Like, I think being able to look at your design and being like, this isn't perfect and it should be like something we iterate on forever. I think that's really important because there are games that haven't changed. Like, there's been some changes, right? So this isn't the best example, and I don't play this enough to have any authority on it. But from my experience, if you look at the Old Republic, the Star Wars MMO, MMO, massive multiplayer online game for anyone that's not au fait with the lingo. It came out like 2011, I think, and it was kind of a bit of a WoW clone, but it was great in terms of it was Star Wars, and loads of us have been waiting for a Star Wars MMO that would capture us properly for a while. And the combat for the time was, it was okay. It was WoW-like, and the combat now, 2023, so 12 years later, it's the same, right, as it was 2011. There's some differences. You can play different classes or have different abilities and stuff, but it's not that different. So I always like it when I see a game that's unafraid to really change things up. And I know we spoke about this last week with Warcraft doing a similar thing. I think big companies are realizing, you have to adapt constantly. But
you need to get outside the comfort zone and really just push for things, because you're never going to know something's not what the demographic wants until you actually do it, because they'll tell you if they don't want it. There's forums light up.
I mean, the internet, it's a world of superlative, right? Because everything is either the best thing ever or the worst piece of crap you can imagine. There is no in between. No one says like, yeah, that game was, I found it very
Okay.
okay. They'd be like, no, it's trash. It's garbage. What are you playing that for?
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, that's
no, this game is
fantastic.
like the best thing ever. Don't you dare say anything against it because I will
Yeah,
come
yeah,
for
yeah.
you. You know, and they're the two. It's a spectrum, but it isn't really because it's one or the other. It's a binary, isn't it? Really, but
Absolutely.
so other things in the news. Obviously, we won't go into loads of details. Steam sale is up. We don't
Woo!
work for Steam or get anything for you buying from Steam, but the Steam sale is always a good chance to get a few bargains. So I do tend to buy stuff
Absolutely.
myself. If there's anything you've been waiting for, check it out. It's probably on sale, so have a little look. We've got
Yeah.
some really interesting news, bringing a bit of real life into bring a bit of real life into a game. A real trucking company is buying billboards in American Truck Simulator so they can recruit staff. So they're literally paying this game dev to put real billboards to advertise for people who are playing this game where they simulate driving a truck to apply for jobs where they can really drive a truck.
I think that's fantastic. Because I think there's a film revolving around like I think it was racing of some sort. It might be Formula One, where the character, the main character, is actually starts off through gaming and he's exceptional at gaming, and then they actually someone takes on the sort of like the risk of putting them into a real car and showing him like this is how it's actually done, and then using that knowledge of the game, he then obviously had like the physical part of it being absolutely crazy,
Mm,
um, different to actually playing the game. So yeah, it's interesting because the demographic of Truck Simulator is people that want to drive trucks. So it's all there. Like the
mm,
mindset's there. The maps that they're driving on are going to be exactly what they'll be driving in. I know there's some crazy ones with like massive cliffs and short, meandering roads. But yeah, I think that's fantastic. That's excellent advertising. And again, like going outside of the comfort zone and
mm.
just throwing it out there. I think it's absolutely amazing. Yeah,
I saw
good
like
stuff for everyone.
I saw like a post. I think it was yesterday. I tend to read gaming news in bed, right? Like before I go to sleep, after I finish gaming for the day or whatever. After I've watched some TV. Before I go to sleep, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see what's going on.
More gaming.
And I saw that there's a new Microsoft Flight Simulator being built, and there's loads of devs saying like, we're not building this isn't a game we're building. It is like the emphasis is on simulator. So I'm like, oh, maybe the next thing would be like, oh, do you like pretending to fly planes? Come and fly a plane. But it's really interesting because like pilots train in simulators, right? So at what point do we cross that threshold where the simulators that pilots trained in are
Real.
inferior to the ones
Yeah.
that are represented in the game? So it's really interesting. I do think it sparks a
Yeah.
bit of a shift, right? Because we see, in real life, we're moving towards augmented reality. We won't talk about
Mm.
the Apple headset thingy because I don't know what is going to happen with that. But, we've got augmented reality where we're trying to augment reality with virtual things. And then we've got this where like reality is sort of getting stuck in like actual virtual places. So like real adverts
Mm.
for jobs are going to be in like a virtual environment. That's
Mm.
yeah, it's really weird. But
Yeah, that's fantastic. One more
yeah.
piece of news, real quick, very niche, very awesome. Someone has maxed level 70 in Dragonflight World of Warcraft by never leaving the boat in Exile's Reach. Exile's Reach is the 1 to 10 tutorial island of World of Warcraft. They have leveled without leaving that boat from 1 to 70. the the way that they did this is a global pet battle quest. So they've done the pet battle quests on different characters, but cashed in on the XP on the character on the boat. This took them around 70 days, but God, that would not be me.
I mean,
It's an
that's
excellent achievement. Excellent
yeah.
achievement.
I
Yeah.
love. I always love seeing like the stuff people do like this, right? Like the really random ways in which people find a way to set their own goals in games, their own achievements. Right? It's so bizarre. I think games that hinge on that, like if you look at Oh, there's a game that's trending loads. Is it called Only Up? I think it's called Only Up.
Yes, only up. That's right.
You know, if you haven't seen this, if you watch Twitch, or if you don't, in fact, because you can find videos on it, there's a ton of streamers playing this game, and the only goal is you just climb up stuff to try and get as high as you can, and if you fall off, you just got to start again. And like when I say like as high as you can, like it takes hours, like hours and hours and hours to get as high as you can. Yeah, it looks like it would like imagine achieving that, and I think that capitalizes on that idea, right? A lot of gamers do this. But like, I want to do this, but I want to do it under these rules. There's no one's going to care if I do this or not. This is my own achievement.
Yeah.
And I think games are starting, or game devs are starting to recognize that and be like, okay, how can we like, you know, encourage this a little bit more? And I think Only Up is a sign of that coming in. But
Definitely make your own conclusion, make your own journey, experience it how you want to experience it rather than someone else. Make your own fun.
Which is a good analogy for life. Just experience your own journey. Just do what you want to do. Do what you like. Do you hate your job? Just leave it. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be all right. Don't worry. Also, we're not accredited to give any advice, so don't actually take this. But if you do want to leave your job, just do it. We don't care. Do you care, Sean? I don't mind. If it's going to make you happy.
Grimwood, whilst you're there, discord.gg/Grimwood.
Yeah, and that is actually an order. In fact, that is. I don't want to say like I don't want to quote anyone important, but lots of important people have said the only true path to happiness is by joining Grimwood. All right, that's not a quote from me. That's
Barack Obama, I think.
I think it was like and I think like lots of religious leaders like just joined in with it and like chimed the same thing, like join Grimwood for some reason. I don't know. Maybe just like Sean, just head to discord.gg/Grimwood and see what happens. Maybe I don't know, maybe you'll find true happiness. Or maybe you just get to play some games with some idiots like us and have some fun because that's what we are about. Speaking of idiots that we game with.
Oh, why would you say that, Jack?
I think it's probably time. It's probably time we introduce the first ever guest we've had on the show. He is a member of the Grimwood community. I've known him for way longer than Grimwood has been in existence, and we've gamed together for many years. But we have with us the lovely, the gorgeous, the hot guy himself, Mr. Ryna.
Hello, Ryna.
Hello.
Woo!
Hello. How are we doing today?
Absolutely fine. Thank you very much, buddy.
How are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely no problem at all. So, tell us, who are you? How did you get to Grimwood, except through the discord.gg/Grimwood?
Well, I didn't even get it through that link. I had to get the actual sort of community leader to sort of explain it to me and drag me in. So my name's Brian. I go by Ryna in quite a lot of games. I have known Jack for good and for bad for many years, through many years of playing World of Warcraft and him being multiple guild leaders across many raids. Our best sort of experience of a guild was our first boss kill in Warlords of Draenor, the Kargath, I think is his name.
Kargath Blade Fist, yeah.
Yeah, Kargath Blade Fist. We only made it through one boss and then our group disbanded.
One of my many successes.
I know. You can't always get it the first time, but Grimwood has been a very good sort of. I kind of dropped off the radar for maybe a couple of years. So I got engrossed in League of Legends and always keep in touch in and out with Jack and the guys. And Jack saw me playing WoW one day and was like, "Get back in here now," and the rest is history. And met a lot more new and interesting people, including Sean.
Interesting people.
Yeah,
interesting is it's a very polite way to describe Sean, isn't it?
I'll absolutely take that. I'm clipping this.
So we've just got a picture of Ryna up, unfortunately not a webcam, but here he is in his very handsome self. Look at him. It's going to be really hard to get through the rest of this podcast when I'm so aroused.
My desk just almost flipped. Jesus.
I don't even have a
I-
mechanical one, but it's gone up like a couple inches. So.
I didn't realize we were wearing white t-shirts today, so I would have put on a white t-shirt for the photo.
I was just thinking that.
You know what? This is we've said a few things we both thought today, Sean. I think we've started to sync our personalities. You know, like when lots of women live in the same house and so they sync their cycle. I feel like we spend so much time together that we've just synced our lives a little bit now. So we just dress
got
the same.
Chair, got the t-shirt,
We're
the brain.
yeah, like exactly. Got bloody everything. So for you people that are new to listen to this or haven't listened to the first episode, which you should, by the way, it's on Spotify. Go and listen to it. It's bloody awesome. But also stay listen to this one for now because live, you know, we're here now, right? It's brilliant. We have a bit of a format. We ask some questions, and each week we're going to bring on a guest and ask them some questions about gaming and how it's impacted their life and you know, some of their favorite games and their least favorite games, and just have a chat about like the importance of it, because wrapped in this layer of gaming, we are all humans, all right? And we learn a lot about the world, I think, through gaming. And lots of us turn to it for different reasons. And I'm always fascinated, like endlessly fascinated by the stories that people have that brought them to gaming and their experience with gaming communities. And, you know, I've been in some bad ones before. I've been in some okay ones before. I've never been in one like Grimwood before. Bit biased, but it is just fantastic. And so yeah, there's loads to cover, but let's, without any further ado, which is a phrase that we never use anywhere ever apart from in that particular situation. Don't even know where that, well, I know where it came from, Shakespeare, but without any further of that thing, Ryna, I'm going to dive into the first question. Are you ready for the first question?
Ready.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yes, I am single.
That's it. That's a podcast. Sean needs a girlfriend.
Guys, I found her.
We've completed the goal. Podcast episode 2. We've got Sean a girlfriend. It's over. We're done. Ryna, what is the earliest game that you can remember playing?
So the earliest game that I remember playing was back when I was about 4 or 5. It started with my dad's always been a bit of a gamer himself. Back on the Commodore 64, I think it was, and early PC gaming back then. He used to play a game called Dungeon Keeper and Settlers. And when I was 4 or 5, I used to sit up watching him, and after he'd finished his tea, he'd be sat there playing his game and get so immersed in it himself. And I would just be sat behind him, sat silently, not making a move or anything, just in case he would see me and send me to bed at like, it would have been about 9, 10 o'clock. My mum would come upstairs going, "What's he still doing up?" And then just send me off to bed. Dad goes, "Oh, I didn't even realize he was there." But it was those sort of that was my first introduction into gaming, or first gaming memory. And during the daytime when Dad was at work, I'd finish whatever I was doing, and he'd show me how to load up, and I would play the first level of any of these games because I didn't know how to do very much in it. I wouldn't know how to do the objective or finish the level, but I would be having the best time making like woodcutter houses and foresters and like quarries and just getting the resources. And I thought I was just as good as my dad and having a great time doing it. But yeah. And games like Dungeon Keeper and Settlers have stuck with me as like my go-to games for the future as well. So yeah, that was my introduction into gaming from a very young age.
I remember Dungeon Keeper. I remember Settlers too, actually. I remember Dungeon Keeper. I think the thing that I loved about it, and this might have only been in 2, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, was it like, because it was a strategy game, right? Like real time strategy game. You created your own dungeon. You were like the overlord, and you had like minions and stuff, and you got them to find treasure. And you had heroes that came in to try and kill you, but you were the bad guy, so you had to kill the heroes. But the thing I loved about it was you could take control of like a demon, one of your demons, right, and like play as it. Was that in Dungeon Keeper 1 too?
You could do that in 1 and 2, and you could go around your dungeon in a first-person point of view as one of your minions and just do whatever you wanted to do. So go run down a corridor towards the bad or the good guys, as they were, as you were the bad guys, or you could just go around killing little imps or whatever. It's a fantastic little game.
That sounds really ahead of its time. Like being able to go and like swap like POVs, the building part, and actually control like an individual unit. That's really interesting. My question is, have you revisited the game at all? Like, how recent was the visit? If you revisited it?
So on Good Old Games, you can get the Dungeon Keeper and the original Settlers, but Ubisoft have actually released their own version of the ports of all the Settlers games. So you can buy the original 1 to 8 individually on their store, which is amazing. And they all work on like current PCs and have resolution upgrades and all sorts. So it's amazing that. The Dungeon Keeper was a company built by Bullfrog, which was taken over by the evil bad guys, EA. And so they haven't done anything really with the franchise. They've only made it a mobile game, which was a disgrace to the actual franchise itself. But Good Old Games, you can still get it on there and play it like today, and it's still as good as it was. It's definitely dated, but it's still got its charm. It's still what it was back in the day.
Oh, that's good. The nostalgia can still
Yeah.
kick in.
I
That's
love
really
that
nice.
I love that your memory, is watching your dad sort of play this game at night, because that's such like a visceral image, right? Because like I can't remember the games, but like I remember seeing my dad playing games on, and this is going to make me feel super old now, but I mean I was really young, if that helps me feel a little bit younger at the time, but like, and we're talking like early single digits, but he was playing games that he loaded with like you remember the big floppy, the actual floppy disks, like the huge ones.
Yeah.
I think they were like B drive, whatever, I don't know what they're called, but and it was like, all I remember is it was some tank game, but I've got really fond memories of that, even though I never played it. I was too young, and I was just fascinated by watching it. And I think because a lot of people in this generation, like our generation, but kind of, we were young before video games were super commonplace. Like they kind of, we got to see the transition where like, remember when PlayStation 1 came out? Like I remember when PlayStation 1 came out and like people lost their shit. They were like, oh my God, this, it was this like huge leap forward from like SNES and Master System, or Genesis if you're American. It was just this massive leap forwards at discs. Everything was, most of the games were 3D and like quite good quality 3D for what they were. Obviously, in my head, I remember them being much better than they actually probably were in reality when you look back. But yeah, I really like you've got that. Like, it's quite a nice familial memory, right? Like a nice warm sort of like, I watched my dad play games, and like
Yeah, that's really
what I
nice.
remember. Yeah.
Oh, he still plays games to this day. Like if he's having a stressful time in his life, he'll stay up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, playing the latest Settlers till 4 in the morning, and then tiptoeing into his bed, and then getting up at 8. And Mum going, "Why'd you look so tired? What time did you go to bed?" He goes, "Midnight."
I mean, literally, like the circle of life continues, right? This was me the other day. Like I was playing Factorio, and I think I looked at the clock, and I was like, 11 o'clock. I better log off soon. I went, I've got to get off work tomorrow. I think I logged off at 3:30. And that's
There's always one last thing to do.
Right?
Yeah, just one more thing, one more level, one more build, one more whatever. Just one more. One more's fine, and I'll be fine. Oh, that's awesome. I love that though. Yeah, that's really cool.
I think we are on to the next one, are we? Okay, so Ryna, what is the game that has had the biggest impact on your actual life, in real life? What is it?
Well, that's slightly different to how I would picture it. There's multiple games that have had different aspects on my life. Like World of Warcraft is one of those that introduced me to a lot of people that I play games with now, and it's a very common game that everyone can play when it's all fresh and everyone's enjoying it. But one of the bigger games that I probably played the most throughout my teenage years was Halo 3 when it first came out. And spending I must have been about 15, 16 when it came out. And just every weekend, every weeknight, every winking hour that I could play that game, I was on there with my friends, just playing it. And just, it could be down to the, like, normal matchmaking. It could be doing custom games like zombies, or making your own maps. It was great. Just so many great memories from playing that and just bonding with my friends over it.
Mm.
What
But, yeah.
was that like? Couch co-op? Did you play like together? You know, in the same house?
It was the last Halo game that you could do 4-player co-op online. So you could have. My friend had a quite big TV, which was the size of 4 normal-sized TVs for most people back in the day, and we'd all be sat in this one room, and we'd play 4-player online, against other people, which even back then that was quite rare. You'd only normally maximum get 2-player split screen online. So Halo 3 was like really pushing it out there with that, and it was really great because there was a group of 4 of us that used to just hang out all the time at my friend's house, much to his mum's disgust at seeing us every weekend coming round.
Oh, bless. I just want to point out a phrase that Jack said: couch co-op. What the hell? I've never heard of it like that. I've just heard of like split screen or something. You know, where you peek at people's screens and that. It's got a phrase.
It's quite a
generation gap here.
Yeah, well, no, I think I never used to call it couch co-op, right? It was split screen. I think like it's become. I'm sure it's like I've seen it mentioned in articles and stuff. So I think it's quite new in like the gaming sort of lexicon. Do you know what I mean? As a word, like couch co-op, but I think it literally just is. Just another way of saying like you can play this together on the same machine. Like Luce and I last night were playing Pummel Party. I got it on the Steam sale, which I mentioned earlier, on PC. Both had a controller. She definitely didn't rage quit, is what I'm going to say publicly. We didn't stop because she rage quit, definitely. 100%. Under no duress did we quit because Luce raged at the game. Luce is my wife, by the way, for anyone that's wondering. Lady Ravenwood.
I wonder why you said it really quietly. Is she home?
Yeah, she isn't home, so I can say this as loud as I like, and hope that when she listens to this podcast, that I've already prepared her for this. No, I mean, I think like it's quite a new phrase I get, couch co-op. But yeah, basically, it is just split screen, right? Any game you can play. Sort of together, which is there's not many these days, you know, that come out.
It used to be the norm, didn't it? That's how you used to play games with your friends.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was. Yeah. People went through the point where they'd get like a bed sheet and they'd line it with the actual like split in the screen so that you couldn't peek screens. So the person would be on the top person would be on the bed and the bottom person would sit on the floor. So then the person on the floor could see their screen at the bottom and then on the bed at the top to stop cheating. But I never had that with my siblings. We all just peeked screens and fought. It was great.
Oh, 100%. We did the same. We were just like, you know, don't look at my screen, but like you would obviously like look at everyone's screen because you're like, it got to the point now. I mean, we did it a lot with you just learn like play Mario Kart, right? Like you can just see what I'll be like, I see you got a blue shell, you better not use it. You better not use it on me. I think like there's loads of good things about being able to play games online, but I do think like more games having couch co-op and online as a feature is only a good thing. I could be wrong about this because I don't think it works on PC, but I think Diablo 4 on consoles has couch co-op like right now. I could be wrong, but I saw something about it, so I think that it might, and someone might be able to correct me on it. So really unusual because obviously it's in 2023. Company like Activision Blizzard, you'd think they'd be like, well, we don't want anyone getting free game for when they could pay us for it. So no, but apparently, I think it's built into the game. I don't know how far you can get, with a character that's like, I don't know if you can then go home and play it, on your own, or I don't know how it works, but yeah, it's really interesting. Okay. So that leads quite nicely on to our next question for you. What's the worst game you have ever played, and why was it so terrible?
Ooh, worst game.
I'm scared.
There's a lot of categories out there.
Yeah.
WoW Classic being one of them.
Well,
Hardcore
what do
Classic.
you mean?
No, WoW Classic is actually quite good at times. It's more about who you play with, not the actual game itself.
Mm.
The worst game I would probably say in recent memory, Warcraft 3 Reforged. I think that is potentially the worst game I've seen come out of development recently in the whole RTS genre. Was sold under false pretenses so much that Blizzard actually offered to give refunds even on people that had played the game.
Wow.
Yeah,
I was one of
so
them, by the way. I got my money back for it after about an hour.
yeah, it was just
Oh my gosh.
horrific. Like what they promised at BlizzCon was a full rework of the game, but then they ended up cutting resources and outsourcing a lot of the stuff to other studios, and then still charging full box price for it. And then
Yeah.
realizing why everyone was a bit mad that some of the features that were in the original game weren't in the re-released game, like leaderboards and multiplayer. So everyone was like, why are we getting a worse game, paying more? And then they took away the ability as well to play the old game, so you had to play the new version.
Oh god, okay. That
Oh,
like sounds like RuneScape until they brought old school back.
you know what? It was just one thing after another with that game, and
Yeah.
it never recovered. Like in terms
Oh.
of like you see some companies like Cyberpunk 2077 who had a rocky start, No Man's Sky rocky start, but they persevered and they made it better. And everyone was expecting Blizzard to do the same, and yeah, just literally have killed an RTS that could have been the start of maybe the next StarCraft, Warcraft 4, who knows? But no, they didn't do it any justice.
It's really sad because, like, I feel like we're at a point in gaming where these game developers that started off as like this team of passionate developers that wanted to make good games, and Blizzard used to be known for like the polish of their games, the quality of them. They might have taken things that already existed and polished them up, but they did such a good job at it that you knew what you were going to buy was a great product. Like when Warcraft 3 originally came out, it was fantastic. It was such a good example of that kind of game. And, you know, when World of Warcraft first came out, there wasn't really another MMO that captured the theme park mentality in as polished a form as well. There are people that will say EverQuest did, and I wasn't really an EverQuest player, but it didn't in the same way. Like WoW went mainstream. You know, you remember like WoW was like the MMO that everyone wanted to emulate. Like it was the big one. And Blizzard, they were this group of passionate developers that did this stuff because they loved it. And then, you know, the corporate side, when they sort of started to see how big a market gaming actually was, I feel like latched onto that. And now it's become a lot like films where it's like, well, you know what? Let's get it out and make sure we get some money back for it, even if it's inferior or even if it's not what you want. And so, like, and much like films are getting re-releases, Warcraft 3 Reforged, it was generous to call it Reforged because when I mentioned I refunded it, and I did because I played it for a bit, and I was like, this isn't any different. This is literally the same game. They limited the models to, and this won't mean a lot to a lot of people, but it's just a small thing that pissed me off. They limited the models to like a really low frame rate, which I found odd because they didn't want them to look sort of better. This was their reasoning, I think, afterwards. They didn't want it to look better than the original models. It's like, but it's not reforged. You've just re-released the game and charged everyone like 30 odd quid for it, whatever it was.
It's an odd definition of reforging.
It's
you need
not,
to reforge all of it if you are to reforge.
You can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna make Dungeon Keeper Reforged, right? It's the same game though, but now you've just got to pay for it again. And also the old one that you had before, that doesn't work anymore. So if you want to play it again, you've got to buy it again. But that's the mentality. And like I think that's why we're seeing such a rise of indie game developers, and Steam, you know, platforms like Steam do so well because indie developers, they aren't beholden to these like corporate sort of almost oligarchies, right? That control all of the big game publishers. They're not beholden to them. They make what they want, and as a result, some of the best games are indie ones because they're made by people that love them, making
Yeah.
games.
Exactly. Passion comes through from independent now, and with the big companies, it's hard to be passionate about anything because there's always a bottom line.
Yeah,
I had a
100%.
question. What if they were to release it, re-release it, the reforged version, like like in a year or so time, and they've promised all of it? Would you still give it another go, even though they've squashed the dreams of a reforged this time? Would you still go and pay for it and give it another go?
I wouldn't go for an old game remake. If they
Yeah.
said that they were going to come out and make StarCraft 3, Warcraft 4, I would definitely give it a try. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I
Just not
think the fact that when it's a new game, they know that they have to be making new content and they'll put a lot more time into it. They saw Warcraft 3 Reforged as we can just update the models and re-release it, and nostalgia will kick in. And if it doesn't need to be groundbreaking, it just needs to
Yeah.
tick a few of the boxes. And they said that they were going to redo all the cinematics in the game and update it with updated lore and all sorts. If they just stuck to that, the very basics, I think nostalgia would have kicked through, but
Yeah.
and carried the game. But
Mm.
when they weren't even delivering on the basics of what they said and were still charging them the full price, if they just re-released it at a fraction of the price, like maybe like 10, 15 quid as a bit of a graphical update, smoother textures, whatever. I don't think many people would have complained about that, but the way that they hyped it up and what they promised
Yeah.
was so far from what they actually delivered, which was the upsetting part.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, that really does suck. But yeah, especially outsourcing to other studios that are already red flags. Just like, why are you
Well,
not doing it yourself? Are you rushing it or?
It's sad, but I've actually watched quite a few videos of this on YouTube
Mm.
of the actual develop or the outsourced company, what they wanted to put in, and some of the models were fantastic. But they were like, okay, we've done some of the models, and then Blizzard were like, well, we need this like sooner. They're like, well, you can't have quality
Rushed, yeah.
rushed. Like, you can either get like the perfect looking game that you wanted and you told everyone, or you can get it done quick and then we can just ship out to you and then that's it. And Blizzard were like, yeah, money quickly.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah, that
shame.
really sucks. Yeah.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Anyway, opposite. Let's go opposites. Let's get a bit of happiness going on. Yeah. What's the best game you've ever played, and why was it hardcore World of Warcraft with I'm reading the wrong thing, guys. Wow, that's so crazy. What's the best game you've ever played, and why was it so great right now?
Well, I said that Settlers and Dungeon Keeper held a great spot in my heart.
Yes.
Those are old games now. As I've gotten older, I think that we were talking about bad developers and indie developers, and there are two companies that have created two fantastic games in the recent years. I'll start with one. Does anyone remember the game Theme Hospital?
No.
Yeah, I have very, very
Yeah.
fond memories of Theme Hospital.
Theme Hospital is basically a management sim of a fake hospital where there's just these bizarre diseases. And I'm sure that if you look up any of the diseases like bloaty head diseases,
Slack
the
tongue,
squits,
the squits,
slack tongue, and all these things with comedy illnesses, but even funnier resolutions to how they used to cure it. So bloaty head disease, you had a big head, and they would pop it with a pin, and then they would stick a hose pipe in your mouth and inflate it back to normal size. And it was just like that sort of stuff. It's all fake, but it's just great little humor.
This wasn't like
man,
an ER episode or something, Sean. It's not like this wasn't like real. this isn't real treatments. Like, just so you know, like,
Oh, I kind of want it to be real treatments. This sounds great. What do you mean?
I don't know, the slack tongue treatment you don't want. I remember that being
No,
like,
no.
didn't they like put your tongue
The
through a roller
guillotine.
and then just guillotine the end off? And they were like, there you
Yep.
go. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
But
quick and
this is
easy.
from a company called Bullfrog who got taken over by EA, and there's some really passionate fans of it who were begging EA to release this game, like a sequel or a remake of it, and EA just no. Harry Potter, FIFA, all these sort of games that are easy to make, get all the developers making them, and have loot boxes and all sorts just to make their money. Not anything passionate about it. But these passionate fans started making it and kickstarted. I think it was Kickstarter for both of these companies I'm going to talk about, but they kickstarted and made their own company called 2 Point, and they made 2 Point Hospital, which is it's a parody, but like a sequel to the actual game, and it is just an updated version of it with new graphics, same sort of humor, but doesn't have any of the original stuff for copyright reasons, but same sort of like style of game, and it is perfectly done. Like there's a few flaws with it. It does get a bit repetitive in the end, and when you're waiting for objectives to complete, but overall, if you want to waste like 5-6 hours, you could easily just do that on a mission and just have a great time playing it. I think Jack, I've seen on his playlist that I think you've played it, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just one of those ones. That's one of my favorite games. Also, talking about Dungeon Keeper, there was a company called Subterranean Games who were Dungeon Keeper fans, a team of about 6, and I watched it from the start to finish, and I actually donated £200 of my own money on this Kickstarter.
God.
And my name is actually in the credits as one of the donators, because they put all the sort of people that donated in there.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it's basically a Dungeon Keeper sequel. So there's meant to be a Dungeon Keeper 3, which was called War for the Overworld, but EA bought it and then stopped the project.
Oh.
Yeah, so they never actually produced the copyright for the actual name of the game, War for the Overworld. So this company of independent sort of fans were like, well, the name's available. So they created their own game, which is a Dungeon Keeper-esque game, called War for the Overworld. And that is an amazing version. Like, it's their own take of Dungeon Keeper. So, like, same with all the other stuff. It's no copyright infringement, but you can't. It's just got its own humor. But they actually managed to get the guy that used to do all the voiceovers, and I'm sure Jack remembers some of the voiceovers from Dungeon Keeper 2, the guy that did all those, who was your like helper / background narrator, who would come out with like great lines at midnight saying, "It's time to go to bed, Underlord," and stuff like that. They had him in the new game and paid him to sort of like, if they got a certain Kickstarter goal, they were going to get him. He offered to do the work free of charge because he was so happy that there was like fans making this, and he was like, I can't charge for this.
I fucking love that. That's so good.
Yeah, there's some really good passionate people out there, and those are the type of games that I like. I like supporting independent companies that are basically fans of a game that are just now like doing it themselves, because big companies are like, oh, there's not enough profit margin, and these smaller companies are going, well, we can do it. We're not out to make millions.
Yeah.
As long as we don't sort of lose money.
Yeah.
You know what I love about that more than anything else, I think, is that, like, I say this a lot, right? Obviously, this is the first time I think I've said it on the podcast, but, you know, you guys would have heard me say this, and anyone that's game with me and been on Discord would have heard me say this. There is nothing in the world, entertainment-wise, that you get as much value out of for what you pay for it than you get with gaming. Like, you know, my metric I normally have, my minimum, right, is I want to get at least £1 an hour. Often I get way better value than that. Like Project Zomboid is a good example. I think I paid like 12 quid for that game, like 400 hours. 400 hours for 12 quid. What in this world can you get 400 hours of entertainment from for 12 quid. Like that's a cinema ticket, so that's 2 or 3 hours of your time.
Absolutely.
You know, and like I think I would happily pay more and have paid more and will support developers. I think it's awesome that you did that. I think Kickstarters, it's indie devs who like still love doing what they do, right? They don't care about turning a huge profit. Like, of course, they want to make money from it. It's capitalism. We've got to make some money. We've got to live. But you know, it's not about how big can our bottom line be. It's about how great can we make this game. How much fun can we make people have with this game, and create these memories that you know we often talk about. We are blasting through time, so I'm going to move on to the next question.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So no, don't apologise. It's awesome. We literally will always overrun because that's what we kind of expect. So don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine.
It's beautiful.
So if you could wipe the memory of any game from your mind that you've played before, and play it again, what game would you choose?
World of Warcraft Shadowlands. Without a doubt.
Would you wipe it so you could play it again, or wipe it so you'd never have to play it again?
Wipe it so I would never have to walk through that portal on top of Icecrown Citadel ever again to walk around Oribos in a horrible circle.
You know what?
Hours upon end.
I empathise because I obviously, apart from Pandaria, which we talked about before, but I've played every WoW expansion on release, and I played Shadowlands, and it was the fastest I stopped playing a Warcraft expansion on release. I just thought it was a real product of greed rather than game development. I don't think there was anything in it that I was like, this is really good and exciting. I just thought, you just rush this out the door. I have a lot of appreciation, right, for the fact that it came out, and a lot of the development time for it was throughout COVID, right? So I completely understand why that might have had an impact on the later part of the development of Shadowlands. I think it was COVID. Was it COVID? I think it was Shadowlands. And so I can sort of see why. Yeah, okay, it sucks. You know, they made a game that's kind of terrible. I can understand why you picked Shadowlands. The other thing for me though is I've got fond memories of it at the end of it, but I think that's because that's when Grimwood went back into it to actually play through everything when it was finally complete. You know, there was finally a game to play rather than like the beginning where there was like nothing to do really. There was finally a game to play.
I wouldn't say there was a game to play at the end either though. I think there was 3 semi-decent raids and a pretty solid Mythic Plus ski or system in place. I don't think that is a complete game. Like in terms of the actual world, we would do nothing but play those 3 bits and maybe a bit of PvP with Pingers and Shaun late at night. But my problem with it was that it had so much potential from the start. And I know everyone was going to say COVID this, COVID that, but if it was going to be that much of an issue, I think everyone understood what was going on. And if it meant that we had an extra year of development time in Shadowlands and they didn't do the every 2-year cycle, I don't think anyone was going to kick off. I think it would have just been good for the actual game itself, because I think Shadowlands has done more damage to the reputation of World of Warcraft than any other previous expansions, and that was even with like say was it Mr. Pandaria with its 15 16 month sort of patch between the last raid and the next expansion. Like I don't think Shadowlands is ever going to be remembered fondly by anyone.
That's really interesting, actually. I don't think of Shadowlands as quite a big positive or a quite big negative, but I think that's just from my experience. I have a question. It's quite a big question, and of course, it's okay if you don't know it on the spot because it's massive. What would you have done differently? I know that you're going to say something down the lore side because your brain is absolutely a beautiful brain, and I love that chock full of lore and that. How would you go about improving Shadowlands if it was to re-release tomorrow? How would it do so? Obviously not like don't tell us like over the next few hours. I know you can
I could go for hours on that.
If you could just like, what would you do differently in the most simplistic terms? I'm really intrigued to see.
Don't wreck your characters is pretty much. the main storyline characters.
Interesting.
Like every expansion has had a big bad or something going on in the background. The jailer, unless, which I reckon what they're going to do is they're going to retcon a lot of it in a future expansion and explain it more in depth when it's relevant again. But the jailer was a non-event. He was very cryptic. You never really saw him. They butchered Sylvanas. Like there was so many fans of her that were just like, well, this isn't who we've grown to love over BFA, because BFA, she was a real strong character. And then all of a sudden she just became a puppet. And it was like,
Yeah, power hungry.
Well, it wasn't even power hungry. She just lost her individuality. And the whole thing with Sylvanas was that she was Queen of the Forsaken. She broke free of Arthas. She was so strong, independent. And then they started introducing all these sort of like segues that the jailer was just doing it all. And it was like, well, that's a bit of a reach.
I think, well, that's the thing that, for me, like, I'm not a huge lore buff by Warcraft. Like, I don't, characters are going to do things that I don't like sometimes, and I don't mind that. I think the thing I struggled with as someone who is less invested in the lore, but still cares about a good story, because Shadowlands wasn't a good story, really. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. I get what they were trying to do, having the jailer be this like puppeteer, but there's a bit where spoiler alert, Sylvanas says to Anduin, he wasn't controlling me. Like, I did this of my free will. And I'm like, no, that's worse. That's way worse. Because, like, you wouldn't do that of your free will. This is stupid. And so there's a lot of, for me, I was just like, when they had the thing where she burnt down the world tree and stuff, and I was just like, yeah. And I was like, you know what? Like, I have to believe there's going to be a really good explanation for this. And when they brought the jailer in, I was like, okay, he's going to be this like puppet master. He manipulated her. I can kind of see, if they tell this right, how that might work. They didn't tell it right. And then they decided, let's just make it so she wasn't even controlled by him. She did it anyway. And I'm like, who in the writer's room went, yeah, you know what? Like, people are going to really fucking love this. Let's make this character do something so out of character and just commit like genocide against her own race for no reason other than she was just like, yeah, I just felt like being evil. Just thought, you know what? Being good's all right, innit? But I think I'm going to be evil now for a little bit for no reason.
It's like the head writer was just there like, oh, I'm going to have to put in a plot twist for the sake of putting in a plot twist that doesn't make sense. It's like, why would you do that?
But I think out of the thing, the reason for Shadowlands, and the reason why I think I said it was a complete game at the end for me, is I think that it's how it should have released. So when I say it was a complete game, I think what I mean is that if it had released with the amount of content it had at the end, I would have been happy with it as a release for an expansion. Not because I like the story and I think some of it was stupid, but because some of the nuances of the smaller side stories were quite nice, and some of the characters, the stupid fairy with the annoying voice notwithstanding, she absolutely did my head in. Ardenweald, beautiful, like a really beautiful zone. If anyone's played Warcraft, like Ardenweald's a really
worst
beautiful
questing zone ever.
But yeah,
I hate
it's like aesthetically amazing. Everything else, fucking dreadful. Like, it's so, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the high pitched fairy voices. There was a bit on the nose. I didn't like, but there's some cool little stories, with like little things in there, like doing a hunt, for example, with like in fact, it might be one of the class quests. I can't remember. Or was it? No, I think it was a campaign quest.
It was the Ardenweald campaign.
And like little things like that. I'm like, this was really cool. Like these little like side stories that you've not really shone a light on are way more interesting than this bollocks you've come up with for Sylvanas doing stupid stuff. And so
I really enjoyed Revendreth, honestly. Like the story and the characters there was absolutely amazing. I always went there last because the storyline was the last one, and that meant people that had war mode turned on are gonna be almost max level around then. So if I started there on my many alternative accounts, I'd be against like red and skull people, and I wouldn't be able to world PvP them. So that was one of the niggles of Revendreth for me. I wanted to go there, but I had to wait.
I also found that the world design, while Arden World was beautiful, I don't think the zones felt very populated, as in you had Revendreth, which had some very tall, cool looking buildings, but it looked very. I know we were in the sort of afterlife and everything's meant to be dead, but the zones didn't need to be dead. Next, no, what's the plague one? I always forget the name of it.
Maldraxxus.
Maldraxxus. That was just basically
I hate that one.
a flat sand pit with tall walls with an arena in the middle.
It's sad. Yeah, like
Arden
that.
World was just basically an upgraded version of the Night Elf starting zone, which I love. And then Bastion.
Like,
Yeah.
Too bright.
mountains.
Too bright.
Too bright. Yeah. Turn down your gamma a bit.
I burningly bright, which isn't even a word, but yeah, I think like the criticism I saw of Shadowlands, and I'll move on really quickly after this because we are we're still behind. But the criticism I saw, which I totally agree with, right, was that it was all the zones were too disconnected. So even though the zones were huge, they felt tiny because you couldn't go from one to the other without having to go through a flight point back to Erebos, the fondly known as the airport, and then fly back out from the airport of Erebos to the next one. So everything was like in capsule, it was just its own capsule of a zone, and like that was a bad move from a world, I say, because do you remember, you guys may or may not remember this, but like a lot of the thing they talked about was how, and I saw a video about this recently about why it was so good. The reason why one of the reasons why WoW was so successful is the main character wasn't you. And it wasn't these people that you knew. It wasn't Arthas. It wasn't Uther. It wasn't any of these characters. It wasn't Thrall. It was the world. Right? The world was huge. It took ages to get across. You got lost in it. You got lost in these side stories that took ages to complete. But you weren't the hero. You weren't like the savior. You were just there doing these tasks because you were needed. You did it in this world, which was amazing. And in Shadowlands, other than obliterating the story and some of the characters, they also kind of obliterated the world by having this. I mean, the afterlife thing was kind of not going to work out because I think even in like Lich King, there's a joke when, isn't it like Arthas or someone says something like, "Doesn't anyone stay dead anymore?" And I'm like, that is Warcraft though, right? Isn't it? Everyone, like if someone's dead, now we know, well, they ain't really dead because there's probably, and not like if they go down that path again, they'll be like another Shadowlands. There's like inside the Shadowlands where you go if you die in the Shadowlands, and I'm like, it becomes this sort of inception of stupidity, and like
the suspense of people dying because it's just like, oh, actually,
it doesn't mean anything.
Chance. Yeah.
They have devalued the whole thing of death now, so
yeah, that's it. Devaluation of death. Yeah,
and WoW suffers from like. If you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z, right, it's the same thing that WoW has, and the same as Supernatural, the TV series, if you've ever watched it, where the writers don't know how to advance the plot without having an ever escalating threat. So every single enemy that comes has to be more powerful than the one that came before it. It's like, but it doesn't. Because eventually you reach like diminishing returns. Right? How many times can someone go, oh, but you might have killed the most powerful thing that's ever existed. Guess what? There's this other one now. It's even more powerful. And it's like
well, Jack, there's a famous quote by a great film franchise. There's always a bigger fish.
Well, we're just waiting for the Clockmaker to come now. That was the latest Shadowlands thing. The Clockmaker. I dread to think what that's going to be.
Turn back time. It's just more devaluation.
Restart the whole World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Back to classic, everyone.
Hey, maybe they'll do our dream right and remake it in Unreal Engine or something, and it'll be this beautiful looking action combat MMO. Imagine that. That would be fucking amazing, wouldn't it?
The dream.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, you talkative, beautiful, beautiful people. Ryna, what is your experience of being a gamer through the years, and do you feel it has changed as society itself has changed?
Ooh, okay. Experience of being a gamer is basically been my identity growing up, but I wouldn't say I'm your stereotypical gamer.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of people that would sort of society's always got this sort of stigma of gamers going, just staying inside, being shy, not talking to anyone. But just through my life experiences, I've always loved gaming. My dad loved gaming, but there was always a balance as well. So as much as I used to game, I used to go out, do stuff. I used to play a lot of hockey, socialize that way. And then in my downtime, I would just play games all day, every day. But
Nice.
I think society's been changing a lot quicker with everything that's going on in the world. COVID has really accelerated that. So there'll be a whole generation of gamers out there that maybe for 15, 16 had the dream that we all wish we had at school of being locked in, not being allowed out, and just
Yeah.
playing games for like a year straight without having any of that. But then they've got the negative side of that they are going to be stunted development wise, like socially, other than sort of talking to their friends over the headset. So it's a hard one, really.
It is. It's quite a broad one.
Yeah, like I say, I think my experience of being a gamer through the years has been a fantastic one. It's taught me a lot. I've learned a lot from things like RuneScape about being scammed. I think every kid should be exposed to getting armor trimmed by some guy that can't actually do it and stealing all your armor. That was a really tough lesson and taught me not to trust everyone. But then also the friends I've made along the way and the people I've met, I don't think I would have met half as many interesting and different people if I didn't game. Like,
Ooh, I like that.
It's a good answer.
I think the fact is that a lot of interesting people don't necessarily always go to the pub, which is what I've discovered over the years, is that sometimes the more interesting people are the ones that, even if they only do an hour or two of gaming a week, but if you can talk to them online,
Yeah.
you can learn so much from people.
That's a really interesting way of thinking about things, actually. Yeah, it's like almost like the demographics of people going to the pub are not necessarily going to align with the people that are introverted in that. Interesting.
I think as well, like it's kind of this idea, right? That like, because it used to be, certainly in my past, and less so now, but like you either did one or the other. You were either the kind of person who was super extroverted, who went to the pub and that was a cool thing to do, or you could do the lame thing, which is like go and game, right? And game with your friends.
Yeah.
And things have definitely changed a lot. But I think there's a bit of a hangover from that still for a lot of people where they're like, well, you know, can I talk about that I'm a gamer? And it's like, well, yeah, because actually, like, it's the biggest, obviously, probably not bigger than pharmaceuticals, but in terms of entertainment, it's the biggest like money maker. It has the biggest turnover. You know, it's this huge industry that everyone's still a little bit like cagey about talking about sometimes because of the connotations of being a gamer. And actually,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
you know, things I think have changed a lot. But yeah, there are a lot of people out there who still think you have to be one or the other. And actually, like, there's no wrong. Like, there's no if you love going to the pub, go to the pub. Like, do what you love. Like, who cares? It's not going to affect anyone. I think the point is that don't judge people, right? Like now, it's okay if we don't want to do that. It's okay if we choose to game or we choose to go watch films or we choose to go for walks or we choose to crochet, whatever the hell your hobby is. It doesn't matter. Like, if you love it, you should do it because it makes you happy. And doing what other people deem the right thing to do won't make you happy. It'll just make you pretend to be happy, which is just miserable, right? So
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's a really good answer, Ryan. It's really insightful.
I also see gaming as quite vast in terms of I would say a lot of males have an Xbox at least or a
Yeah.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
But there's inequality within gaming and gamers themselves who look down at other gamers. So the FIFA and Call of Duty guys, they play games just as much as say someone playing World of Warcraft, but they're not weird nerdy World of Warcraft
Cool
gamers.
people.
There's
Yeah.
there's no equality in the sort of what game you play. They're very judgmental in terms of well, okay. I'm all right to play 10 hours of Call of Duty because that's cool. But playing 10 hours of Train Simulator is just weird, which I think is something that the barriers need to break down a bit more. Is the fact that everyone's just trying to play in the same. They're just playing something that they enjoy, and that there shouldn't be so many sort of walls between gamers themselves. Like, oh, cool, you play Call of Duty. Oh, what do you play? Oh, Train Simulator. That's cool. What do you do in that sort of thing? I think that needs to be a more of a accepted sort of relationship in between guys, girls, and all types of gamers who just want to have fun and enjoy their spare time.
What do you think we should? And this is a big question, so don't take a second if you need to, and don't feel like if you. I'm not asking you to create a solution on the spot, right? But what do you think we can do as gamers to help change that? And what can we do, as and I mean it in a very broad sense as gamers, because as you said, like it covers a lot of people. But what can we all do to help make that not be such a hierarchical thing?
Get to know the person rather than the game that they play. I think that is the biggest. Like, I would say that there's been people in this Discord who I have none of the same game interests with, but I enjoy as a person, and I think that's more important, is the person behind whatever they're playing. So I would love to. I don't mind being sat in a call if I'm playing a different game to other people. Like, I play a very unique game, RuneScape 3, by the way. Not old school. That's too much of a grind. But I'm quite happy to play that while other people there playing whatever game they're playing, like Diablo. I didn't enjoy Diablo 4, but I'm quite happy to hear people talking about it and enjoying it, because I enjoy people enjoying their games. And I think we just need to be, as long as someone's having fun with that game, we should be more accepting of that and not be so judgmental on it.
We
should be hyped for the person that's doing it. Even if you're not interested in it, it should always be hyped for someone that's gaining happiness by doing what they love. And that's absolutely what the Grimwood community do. And we just do it so naturally because we just like to see happiness. I love to hear, especially when I'm making, like stupid jokes with you, Ryna. I love that little laugh that you do. It's just, hey, there it is. I love it because it's like I've just made someone smile or happy or feel good about themselves, and that's what it's about. It's not, oh, did Ryna do good in the 2 session? Oh my god, he didn't. What's the point? It's like,
oh my god, why did Ryna not heal me in the battleground?
Why did you heal me whilst that rogue was shadow dueling me? Like, what the hell, man? Just trinket and get inside and help me. Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's beautiful.
I'll give a good example of something that I'm really proud of that we've done recently. I'm not going to name names or anything just for them, but me and Sean have been playing a lot of classic and hardcore, and we were just messing around in Elwyn Forest by the tavern. We weren't actually RPing or anything.
I'm just going to say this is Goldshire Tavern, right? The famous Goldshire Tavern. Yeah.
But we were just chatting, and we're just sort of, I like to say that we're just farming reactions, but we just like winding people up in games. And we were just doing our usual thing, challenging people to duels, mocking people, and I wouldn't say mocking, but interacting with them, getting interactions with people, seeing how they react to us and all that sort of stuff. And there was one person that sort of loved just hanging out with us, and now we're doing a trio with them in classic, and it was just someone completely random that we had no interaction with before, invited them to the guild, and just they're a great addition already to what we're doing. And this is definitely the one that we're going to get to 60, our trio of touring cows.
I mean, as this is the first time I've ever heard you say that, I definitely believe that you're going to make it this time. Yeah, I think like what you've talked about, it's really like it's how we meet a lot of people that have come to Grimwood have been like people who have kind of joined naturally because they've seen what we're about, and we just have fun and we're accepting and welcoming. And there are a lot of gaming communities that are super toxic and either like competitively or, you know, they're quite exclusive. And, you know, if you love playing a game that any of us don't play, none of us are going to be like, well, you're wrong for liking that game. Like, if you love playing FIFA, go play FIFA. I don't like FIFA. It's not my sort of game. But if it brings you joy, like, go play it. And, you know, same with like,
the joy.
God, I tried League. I did. It wasn't for me. But you know what? Like, I know that it brings some of Grimwood a lot of joy. So I'd never be like, well, you shouldn't play that game.
The wrong word.
Well, you know, the community probably doesn't bring you joy, but maybe playing with each other does a bit. But you know, I think it's much more about like having fun with people, regardless of what game you're playing. The game is almost secondary to that, right? Like it's almost just like a thing that you're doing while you play, and
before the game and the gaming experience. No, I totally agree.
Okay, Ryna. Although we've normally limited this, I say normally, this is the second episode, limited this to one game per answer. I'm going to let this fly. We've got a few games, so we're going to go through, for anyone that wants to recreate Ryna's gaming life, these are the games that you are going to need to play. If you can find some of them, by the way, because some of them are hard to find right now. I'm not saying find them through other means, but I do know that you can find them through other means. Take from that whatever you like. Okay, those games are Dungeon Keeper, Settlers, and we weren't specific, but we'll say Settlers 1, right? But there are like hundreds now, but Settlers. We've got World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor, Halo 3. Halo's come up, and Warcraft have come up 2 weeks in a row so far. So we're obviously on a trend here. We have Theme Hospital and the newer 2 Point Hospital. And if you want to punish yourselves, or less so now, I suppose, than at the start, but still not great, World of Warcraft, Shadowlands. So, yeah, those are your games. Those are the games that made up your life, Ryna. So it's a hell of a mixture of games.
Yeah, that's a lot of variation.
Yeah, but I love it.
I play what everyone else is playing, so I'm just there for the people.
Yeah, hell yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this stuff. It is, we're so glad to have you in the community. Obviously, I've played with you for a long time, and it's really nice that you have found a home in Grimwood, because I have, and I think a lot of us have. I think that's really indicative of the culture that we're trying to embody. Thank you loads for coming on the podcast as our first guest. You've been awesome. It's been really fun talking to you about games. It's been really fun hearing about the games that have had impact on you for your life. Thanks also obviously to Shaun again for coming with me. Thanks to me for being here. I guess I've got to thank myself as well, haven't I? Well done. Well done, Jack. You did a really good job. I'm proud of you.
Pat on the bum.
But no, thank you everyone. It's been awesome. We will not be doing an episode next week because we have a Grimwood meetup, so we won't be doing an episode next week. So to fill the void in your hearts that we know will be there will definitely be a ton of pictures, a ton of stuff that we're going to be doing away that you'll see some snippets of. Not all of it, because some of it we're probably not allowed to put on social media for reasons beyond related to social media rules. But you know, you'll see snippets. It'll be fun. And you'll definitely hear a lot about it when we come back to the next podcast.
Absolutely, God.
But yeah, otherwise, thanks very much for listening. And remember as well, if you've just caught the end of this, you can listen to us on Spotify. We're also going to be putting these up on YouTube as well. So if you heard this and you were like, you know what, I want to listen to that again because it was so bloody awesome. I can't help myself. Ryna's voice was like fresh coffee in the morning and I want to have another sip of it. Go to YouTube, go to Spotify, do it again. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Or you'll hear us next time. So goodbye. Bye. We love you. Bye. 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 Bye.